afternoon, and welcome to UROP's presentation titled Get Involved in Research. You're going to see me go like this a lot because that's where the screen is. I am Jerry McMillan. I'm a UROP advisor. I am joined this afternoon.
My name is Brittany Kester. I'm a UROP ambassador, and I'm a senior here this year.
And we are here to talk about research. We're going to talk about what it is, why you want to do it, how to get involved, and then we will finish with a little bit about what UROP can do for you. Our goal is to answer whatever questions you have come in with. Hopefully we'll cover that in the presentation itself, and if not, Brittany and I will be happy to stick around for as long as you still have questions. With that, let me start by asking you a question. What is research? And when I say by asking you a question, I mean a non-rhetorical question. I am inviting audience feedback. What do you think research is? Yes?
Surveys with a bunch of people's answers.
Surveys with a bunch of answers, yeah.
The study of something?
The study of something, absolutely. What else?
Gathering evidence.
Gathering evidence.
Doing like lab work, stuff like that.
Doing lab work, stuff like that. Yep.
Exploring a topic.
Exploring a topic, absolutely, sure. Observation, definitely. All of these are great answers. And all of these, for me, are part of the research process. But I want to suggest to you a very simple definition. And I'll explain why we keep it simple in a moment. At UROP, we like to define research as 3 steps. First of all, identify a challenge, ask a question. Second step, figure out how to resolve it or how to answer the question. And then the third step, do it. And again, it's a very simple, a very generic definition, but the reason we do that is research occurs at UCI across the entire campus. And as you might imagine, dance research looks a whole lot different than engineering research. So where you are doing research, there are going to be a lot of differences compared to what other people are doing. But this process is going to apply wherever you are doing research. So as we're talking about research, keep in mind this is the general process you're going to be exploring. And this leads me to one other thing to think about. You're here because you want to get involved in research as undergrads. But think about this. For a lot of people, getting involved in research sounds like a tremendously intimidating process. But think about this. At some level, you do research all the time. Consider this incredibly difficult research problem. I'm hungry. You have now identified a challenge. Well, actually not from that. I'm hungry. I don't want to be hungry. There's your challenge. How do you approach it? I'm going to look for food. Where can I find some? How do I resolve this? I found a place I want to eat. This is research. You have all done it. Congratulations, lecture over, you're successful. Never mind. But this is a good illustration that getting involved in research at a university is just an extension of things you're already doing every day in your lives. And having established that basic groundwork, I'm going to ask one more and the only other non-rhetorical question we have. But given what we've defined research as, given that you're here because you have an interest in getting involved in research, let me ask you this question. Why? Why do you want to do research? What do you hope to get out of it?
I can gain experience in what I want to do with my career.
Gain experience for a career, absolutely. What else? Yeah. better understanding of a topic of interest, definitely.
Apply academic knowledge to create something new.
Apply academic knowledge to gain something new, definitely. One more.
Just put something on my resume.
Something for the resume. It is a great answer. I like the other ones a little bit better as a first reason to get involved, but getting resume experience is a great benefit of doing research. So think about some things. You get involved in research, you gain hands-on experience. When you're doing research, you are actually doing stuff. You see how it works. You get a lot of skills. Not only are you gaining the skills required to do your project, you're going to be presenting your research. You're working on your public speaking skills, maybe your writing skills, certainly your teamwork skills. All of these things are things that are going to go with you through the rest of your school, through your career, through your life. All of this comes out of getting involved in research. Real-world applications. When you're involved in a research project, you're doing something that can impact the people around you, your community, the world. This is not just an intellectual exercise. It is things that matter. Somebody mentioned applying classroom knowledge. You're sitting, listening to hopefully engrossing, engaging, amazing lectures every day from your professors. How does this stuff actually work? This is how you take the information out of the textbook, out of the lecture, see how it works, and then take that back to the next lecture. All of a sudden, it makes more sense because it's not just an intellectual exercise anymore. You're also collaborating with other people. You may be involved in a project with other undergrads, grad students, postdocs, your faculty mentor. All of these people working in a field that interests you. You're going to put together relationships, networks that can help you as long as you are working in that field. You get into grad school, maybe now you know somebody who's going to grad school half a world away. You need somebody in Brazil, now you know somebody there. So the chance to build networks is a great reason to get involved in research. Another note, the more you get involved with the more you get to know your faculty mentor, the better your relationship with them. When that day comes that you need a letter of recommendation, the more likely they are to say yes and write a good one. That's something you get out of research. But there's one other reason to get involved in research, or one other benefit that maybe some of you have thought about, but we think about it a little bit less, which is, do I want to do research? Maybe you don't know. And if you don't, try it. Maybe you try it, you do research for a couple of quarters, you say, yeah, that is definitely not for me. Now you know. You've experienced it, you've learned some stuff, you've gotten some things out of it, you have now made an educated decision to move to onto different things. On the other hand, you may discover that you get involved in research, and I've known students for whom this happens, you go, oh, this is amazing. I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing this. So if you think research may be something you want to try, try it. See if it works for you. All of these are great reasons to get involved. But for a personal point, Brittany, talk about what you've gotten out of your research.
I could literally spend the entire hour telling you how much I've gained from doing research, but the biggest things are confidence in my knowledge and my abilities, and the connections I've made. The research I did at my community college directly brought me here to UCI and to my current advisor. So the connections, the knowledge, and the confidence in yourself. Obviously, like I would say 3 years ago, I wouldn't feel comfortable talking in front of a lot of people, but I've presented at conferences now. I'm very comfortable with this. So it really does give you a lot of confidence and you know about things that you've wanted to know about the whole time.
Great. Thanks, Brittany. So we've talked about what it is, why you want to do it. Let's talk some specifics. There are two basic types of research you could get involved in here at UCI. The first one is more what a lot of people think of as the research model. You join a lab. You have a faculty member. The faculty member has a research topic, a research question, something that they are exploring. And they have put together the lab, the team to work on this project. That could be grad students, postdocs, undergrads, maybe even other faculty. Everybody in the lab is working on some aspect of this project. If you're joining a lab, the professor, maybe a grad student, is going to talk to you and say, welcome to the lab. Here's what we want you to do for a while. You don't have to come up with the ideas yourself. You're starting working as part of a project. You're part of a team. And then the longer you work in the lab, the more you demonstrate how good you are, how dedicated you are, the more responsibility you can get, the more independence you can get. But by working in a lab, you are part of the team. You are working on part of that overarching project that the professor has established. And the lab model is the type of research you're going to be doing almost certainly if you were in biological sciences, physical sciences, engineering, computer science, any of the STEM fields, you're going to be working in a lab model. The other model is an independent model, where instead of having a project that you're joining in process, you, either alone or maybe with several other undergrads, go up to a professor and say, hi, this is a project we would like to pursue. Would you be willing to guide us through this process? So you come up with the research challenge you want to explore, and then you get the guidance from a mentor. This is more what you'll see in the schools of humanities and the arts. You'll also discover in schools like social sciences, social ecology, you'll see both of these models. And if you're interested in getting in one type or another, you need to explore what the professors you're talking about are doing, because that might influence the choice of who you're working with. One thing to think about in terms of both of these models is both of them are working under a faculty mentor. You are not doing this alone. You have guidance from above through this process. So given those types of models, think about this. I'm spending a lot of time doing research. That's the next slide. What am I getting out of it in addition to those intangible things we talked about several slides ago? There are a couple of things you can get out of research. First of all, you can get academic credit. The schools on campus all have a 199 course or other 190s courses called independent study or something similar to that. Enroll in those. They tend to be variable units, anywhere 1 to 5 units. Talk to your professor. How many units should I sign up for? If I'm getting academic credit, what do I need to do to get a good grade? Figure out the details with your professor. But for many undergrad researchers, getting the academic credit helps fit the research into your academic daily life. It's also possible, entirely less likely, to actually get pay out of your research. A couple of models include work study. There's a program called LAPE. If you're eligible, you've heard from us. If you're not, it's way too complicated to go into at this point. Research grants. Maybe professors have extra money to support their students. Like I say, this is much less likely, but it is also a possibility. If it's something you're interested in, talk to your faculty mentor. Tell them what you're interested in getting out of the project. They can work with you and see if those options are available. In terms of time, how much time should you spend on a project? Think of research as taking probably 12 to 15 hours a week, in addition to the classes you're taking, in addition to family commitments, jobs, clubs, anything else you're involved in. It's a major commitment of time. These are general numbers. If you're not available for that much, talk to the faculty member. Say, I can only do 9 hours a week. Maybe they can work with you. I've talked to one student who's working in a lab 6 hours a week. That's less than common, but variances are possible. Work with your faculty mentor, find something that works. So 12 to 15 hours a week during the school year, you have the opportunity to do much more during the summer. If you're not taking classes, maybe you want to focus on your research more in depth. 10, 20, 30, even 40 hours a week can be possible. Most professors want a commitment of at least 1 school year, which 3/4, summer's another factor, but figure once you're getting involved in a project, you are asking the professor to work with you. You are telling them you're going to work with them for at least a year. And think of it from their point of view. If you're joining a lab, a lot of what you're doing that first quarter is just learning how to do stuff. If you just then say, thanks for the education, I'm leaving now, what have they gotten out of it? They want you to be around long enough to be interesting. So plan on spending at least 1 school year on a project. So again, it's a major time commitment, but it's something you can work into your schedule if you go in ready to figure it out. Which leads to one final question. Okay, forgot that was on there. 2 final questions. Can you do more? Absolutely. One of the things you can do is if you get started in research, maybe your freshman year, you love it. You want to stay in the lab next year. Talk to your professor, stay in the lab next year. I know a lot of students who get involved their first year stay in the lab for the entire time they're here at UCI. As long as your professor wants you, that's absolutely possible. There's also the possibility, stay that school year with one professor, say, wow, that was amazing, but I want to try something different. You have the opportunity to do that. So these are not minimal limitations. But that does lead to the one other question I want to answer, which is, when should you get started? And there is only one real answer to that question, and I warn you, it is woefully unsatisfying. The best time to get started in research is whenever you are ready. And the only person that can say when you are ready is you. But there are some things to think about. First of all, do you have time in your schedule to add that 12 to 15 hours right now? If the answer is no, wait. If the answer is yes, keep asking questions. Do you want to take a little bit of time to figure out what you want to do? A lot of times, if you're coming in as a freshman, for example, the change between high school life to university life is so enormous, you want to take some time, adapt. Say, what do I really want to do here? How do I want to plan this out? Take some time, figure it out. But also, how long do you want to do it? As I mentioned, if you want to be in a lab for 4 years, you got to start earlier. If you're only interested in working for a year, you can start later. But that should figure into your questions or into your process of figuring out how and when to get started. And then one other thing to think about is how long before you graduate. Particularly if you're a transfer student, you're here for a very limited amount of time. When we talk about a minimum of a school year, if you're only here for 2 years, your clock is ticking. So that adds a little bit of urgency to the process. All of those go into figuring out when you should get started. But ultimately, the decision's up to you. And just as a note, talk to your academic advisors, see if there are things that will interrupt your process that you should know about before you get started, just in case. You don't want any surprises from that front before you get going. Brittany, when did you start and why?
I started searching out who I wanted to work with before I even transferred here. So I knew I wanted to do research because luckily I really enjoyed my research class, my introduction one at my community college. So I got started before I was here and I applied to the lab and got into the lab before I transferred here. That's not particularly common and you don't have to worry about that if you haven't yet, but a lot of my friends that are transfers, they got started probably the first or second quarter in, and that's totally fine.
Great, thanks. So now that we've talked through all of that, let's look at the actual process. You've decided, I want to do research. I want to do research now. How do I do it? 3 steps. Step 1, ask yourself what you want to do. Step 2, figure out who you want to do it with. Step 3, go about the process. Let's talk about step 1. What do you want to do? There is a common expectation among students that there is this list on campus of all of the available research opportunities. And that all you have to do to get involved in research is find that list, find, ooh, that one, sign up, and you're done, and that list does not exist. Rather, getting involved in research is a matter of figuring out what you want to do and pursuing it from your interest. And you want to be somewhat specific. And at this point, maybe you have a clear idea of what you want to do. If so, great. And if you don't, think about some things. Think about what interests you from your classes. Maybe you're in a class and the professor says something that makes you go, whoa, that's amazing, I want to know more. And they say, but we don't have time to talk about that in this course. Let's move on to the next topic. And you're thinking, but that's what I want to know about. Maybe that's a research topic. Oh, I'm ahead on my slide again. Think about this. If you've chosen a major, think about why. Part of the thinking about choosing a major is we want to leave here with knowing the answers to a number of questions. What are those questions? Maybe those are research topics for you. On the other hand, maybe you're undeclared, maybe you don't know what your major is. Think about what interests you. Get involved in a research project. I've known several undeclared students get involved in research and all of a sudden say, oh, that's my major. So it can work both ways. Think about that. What do you want to learn more about? That's the example I gave first. What are you learning about but want to get deeper into? Those are things you can think about. And then there's what I call the brute force method. Think about the department in which you want to do research. Go to their website, click faculty. You'll get this page full of smiling faces. Click all of them. And on every faculty page, there will be something that says research interests, and then a list of things they're interested in. Look at them all. As you're going through, you'll see a lot of them that make you go, eh. But then you'll hit a few that go, whoa. And when you hit those, make a note of the topic, make a note of the professor, and keep going. The purpose of this exercise is not necessarily to find the perfect one for you, but to find what's available. What are people actually working on? Maybe that'll trigger an idea for you. Maybe you'll think, okay, that wasn't it, but oh, just thought of this one. But by seeing what professors are actually working on, you can start triggering your own thought process. That can help you figure this out as well. But regardless, figure out what interests you. And it's really important for a couple of reasons. The biggest one, and this is something that a lot of people won't tell you up front, but an inevitable part of the research project is as you are involved in research, sometimes things are going to go very badly. And if you're involved in a topic that doesn't much interest you, when your project crashes and burns, you're going to say, I don't care, I'm out of here. You want the project that when everything goes to pieces, you can look at it and say, well, that didn't work. Let's do it again and see what works better. Find a topic that interests you enough to get through the adversity, to get through the challenges, to work no matter what happens. And just as a note, you don't have to do research in your major. If you are a physics major student and want to do dance research, do dance research. You will graduate from UCI as somebody who's a physics major but actually understands how dance works. You are now unique. How do those combine? What can you do with two separate fields of knowledge? Where do those overlap? So there's no requirement to be in your major. Obviously, for a lot of you, that's where your interests lie. So, of course, that's a natural spot. But it's not a restriction. So that's step one. Figure out what you want to do. And step two, figure out who you want to do it with. Look for potential faculty mentors. And there are a couple of places to start. First of all, make a list of the ones who interest you. An absolutely natural place to start, if you're taking a class with a professor and you think that professor is amazing and their research sounds great, that's a great place to start. Just as a note, there is no restriction that you have to do research with professors you already know, but it is a natural starting point. The other recommendation here is anytime you start a class with a professor, start going to their office hours, ask them about their research, get to know them. Professors like to talk about their research. They like having people show up in their office for reasons other than complaining about bad grades. They will like you if you ask them about this stuff. So if you're taking a class with a professor, you like them, you're interested in their research, you've gotten to know them, and you say, hey, professor, can I work in your lab? They're going to be much more likely to say yes. So get to know your professors. That said, if you don't know anybody you want to work with, there's a resource you can look at, the UCI Faculty Profile System. Easiest URL on campus to remember to look for faculty is faculty.uci.edu. There is a search box on that page. Type in the topics you interest you. You will get a list of faculty whose research profiles include those terms. Two important caveats to remember with this system. First of all, you will find that a lot of the faculty profiles you come to don't have a lot of information on them. You will also discover that every profile at the bottom left has something that says last updated. I recently saw 2008. And I still recommend starting here because it's the only place that links to the research profile of every faculty member on campus that has its own search engine. So it will help you get a list of names. And that's your first step. Who are the people you're interested in? And then when you get the list of names, there's one other important step. Research them. I didn't mention department websites. Another good place to look for them, but we've already talked about that. Research the professors. And there are two really important reasons to do this. First of all, the more you understand about the professor and about their research, the more confident you're going to be that they are a good match for your own research interests. But the other thing is you need to build a case as to why they want to work with you. And the more you can show that you've put in some work, that this is worth your time, the more interested they're going to be in working with you. So research the professors. Find information about them. Find their research interests. Find an abstract. What are they working on now? If they still interest you at that point, read some of their publications, preferably the more recent ones. Look at Google Scholar. A lot of professors have publications there. The other place to look for a personal or a lab website. I mentioned the faculty profile system often has not much and very outdated information. The stuff they publish themselves, they're going to update that much more completely and much more often. But research the professors and come out of this process with a list of at least 3 to 5 professors that really interest you before you move on to the next step. So step 1, figure out what you want to do. Step 2, figure out who you want to do it with. And as a brief timeout, how'd you get involved?
I took a note right out of that playbook. I looked at my department website because I knew I wanted to stay within my major. And I looked at every single profile. I looked at all their lab websites, and whoever inspired me. I didn't really know exactly the research I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to stay in my major. So as soon as I saw a couple names keep standing out, I looked at their CVs, which is usually on their lab website, and you can also, a lot of them have their publications on their website. So it's almost a one-stop shop if you can find their lab website. And I just went with who inspired me the most, whose work I thought I could see myself doing.
Great. So get your list of professors. Step 3, go get them. One thing to think about as you're doing this research, maybe you find a professor's lab website, and as you're reading through it, somewhere on the lab website, there's something that says, if you are an undergraduate interested in working with me, do this. If you see something that says that, do that. Follow directions. It's a good way to impress people, or at least not piss them off. If there's nothing like that, we recommend sending them an email. I do not recommend that you just drop in unannounced at their office hours, because as I mentioned, most of the people at the office hours are people complaining about bad midterm grades. They're cranky. The office is cranky. You don't want to ask for something at that point. Send them an email. And we have a format we recommend, 3 paragraphs. Paragraph 1, you. Why do you want to do research? What sort of research do you want to do? What sort of background, if any, do you have that's relevant to that research? And for me, the most important one is, why does this matter to you? How will getting involved in a project like this help you achieve whatever academic, career, personal goals you might have? Or to put it really bluntly, why should they care? As you might imagine, professors get a lot of these emails. Why should they keep reading yours? Why are you interesting? What's your story? So that's the first paragraph. Paragraph about you. Next paragraph is them. This is where you mention the reading you've done. What did you read that made you think they're a good fit for your research interests? Be specific. I was reviewing a student's proposed email a couple of days ago, and this paragraph started with, I read a couple of your publications and they were really interesting. If I'm the professor and I see that, I immediately think, he didn't read it, did he? So have enough to actually, okay, it's tacky to say this, but have enough to actually prove you've done what you've said you've done, but it'll also highlight your interest. What did you see that made you think specifically this professor's a good fit for you? Use an example, tie it back to what you said in the first paragraph about what is important about this to you. So one about you, one about them. Third paragraph, ask for an appointment. Give them some times, dates you're available, your contact information, send the email. As a note, if you don't hear back within a couple of weeks, it is entirely appropriate to send a follow-up. Do not write it this way, but basically say, hey, professor, I sent you an email, haven't heard back, want to let you know I'm still really interested, and to make sure you saw it. Every professor is different, but I talked to a professor about 1.5 years ago who said they do not respond to these emails until the 3rd one. Every professor has their own rhythm, and persistence can pay off. With that in mind, however, there is a fine line between persistence and becoming severely annoying. After 3, maybe 4 at the most, move on to somebody else at your list. But send out the emails. Ask the professors if you can meet. And as you're putting together the email, think about this. This email has one purpose and one purpose only. And that purpose is to get a response from the professor. This email will not get you a research opportunity. That comes later. All you want is the opportunity to sit down and talk with the professor. So as you're composing this email, keep that in mind. And review what you've written. Look at every paragraph, every sentence, every word, and ask yourself, does this get me closer to achieving that goal? And if the answer is no, consider taking it out. Many of the emails I've reviewed over the years, when you open it, the immediate reaction is, wow, look at the size of that scroll bar. This thing's enormous. I'm not going to read it. You want it to be concise, to the point, with just enough information to make the professor want to respond to you. Do not flood them with information at this point. Don't include a resume unless they ask for one on their website. Ditto GPA. Tell them why you're interested. Tell them why you chose them. Stop there. You want them to ask you for more information. But you need to give them enough stuff to ask for to begin with. So at that point, as I said, you need the appointment with the faculty before you can start building that relationship. Keep that in mind as you're doing the email. So talk about how you contacted your prof and where you went from there.
As I kind of mentioned to you guys, I was a transfer. So I actually had one of my advisors reach out and introduce us. They didn't know each other, but they talked about my experience so that he had a strong foundation. If you have a professor that you're comfortable with, that's a good idea to start with. And I also emailed him completely separately on my own. And I did exactly that. Concise is a big thing. He has told me that he sometimes gets 70 emails a day. Be concise, because that is a lot more approachable for your advisors.
Thanks. And then you get that appointment with the faculty. At this point, it's a job interview. And think about this. Whether you've done job interviews in the past or this is your first time, ask yourself this question. Who gets hired out of job interviews? And the answer is very simple. The people who get hired out of job interviews are the people the interviewers want to work with. Which of course raises the question, how do you become that person? And there are a few things to think about. Prepare. You've already read some of their publications. Read more. Go in with specific questions to ask about their research, about them, about what you would be doing in the lab. Go in with specific questions. Show up on time. The next one's very fluid. Dress appropriately. That's different for all of us, but at least show that you're paying attention, thinking about it. This is something to take seriously. But most of all, when you're meeting with the professor, show them that you're interested. There are times when it's entirely appropriate to sit back and bask in the glory of their professorness. This is not that time. Ask them questions. If they ask you questions, these are not yes/no questions. These are things they want a response. They want to work with the people who are interesting. Be somebody they want to work with. So that's the process. Figure out what you want to do, figure out who you want to do it with, and then go get them. Which you may be thinking, okay, that's great. 3 steps, I can do that. It's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. And yet, somewhere in the back of your mind, you may have a little small voice at this point going, okay, 3 steps, but I'm just an undergrad. I'm a freshman. I haven't taken many classes. I haven't written any papers. I don't even have a Nobel Prize yet. Why would they want to work with me?
I think that I was a standout choice because I did my research on my professor and I was genuinely fascinated with the questions that he was asking. Everything that I saw, I tried to expand on. So if I saw a paper that he wrote and I was like, have you ever thought about expanding in this direction or adding this construct to your research? And that's how we actually got the ball rolling on what we ended up working together with. So that passion, it comes through, but let yourself be curious and they're going to see that and they're going to be curious with you. That's how it's always worked out for me.
We used to send occasional surveys to faculty. One of the questions we asked them was, what do you look for in a potential undergraduate researcher? And a lot of students I've talked to over the years have expected that the 2 answers to that question are background and GPA, and almost none of the professors mentioned either. Instead, as Brittany said, almost every professor mentioned one of 3 terms: passion, curiosity, and motivation. Or to put it really simply, they want to work with the people who really want to work with them. Which, to take us back 20 or 30 minutes, is why it's so important to do the research. Figure out the topic that interests you. Find the faculty who interest you enough that you are the one who really wants to work with them. You don't have to be an expert. One of the great things about being an undergrad, part of being an undergrad, you are ignorant. And that's great. It's why you're here. You're here because you don't know stuff and you want to learn stuff. And professors, I'm assuming all of them at some point or another were also undergrads. They know where you are. They don't have huge expectations that you're going to come in and completely revamp their research process. Be humble about what you don't know. Say, I'm here to learn, and just go in with that. And also remember, professors are actually people. But they're people who've dedicated their lives, their careers, to this one topic that interests them so much. And think about this as people yourselves. If there's something you really love, something you incredibly care about, and somebody comes up with an interest in that, they want to talk to you about that and ask you some questions, that's going to make you feel pretty good. Professors too. So is it normal to be a little intimidated by the possibility of approaching a professor? Yes. Should it stop you from doing it? No. And if you still have doubts about that, come talk to us because we have all sorts of other suggestions. Professors want to work with students. That's part of why they work as professors. So that's how you get involved. Those are the processes. Those are some things to think about. And let's talk for a few minutes. What can UROP do for you? The Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program, our job is to support undergraduate research at UCI campus-wide. And we do that through 3 various areas. First of all, we help you get started in research. This will not be a surprise to you. We do presentations on how to get involved in research, like this one. At this point, my recommendation would be start the process. See how it works for you. Maybe it'll go great. Like Brittany, maybe it'll work the first time. Maybe you'll get stuck. If you get stuck, you can contact our office. We're just, I get lost on this floor, over there on this floor. You can email the office. You can call the office. If you want to talk to a member of the staff, You can make an appointment with one of our peer advisors or with one of our professional staff. Information for that on our website. We want to help you get involved. Let us know how we can help. But my recommendation at this point is try it first. Then you can come in with specific questions to ask us, and we can help you in a more focused, direct way. Once you're involved in research, we have some programs that can support you, offering funding, recognition for the research you're doing. Going back to the resume, we've got items that can go on your resume saying, my project was recognized for this. So we can help support you through that process. We also, when you get to the end of your project, you want to show off. We sponsor the UCI Undergraduate Research Symposium every May. This year it is going to be a week dedicated to undergrads presenting their research, poster presentations, oral presentations, arts performances, all things done by undergrads. And if you're already involved in a project, come to the symposium, part of it, find presentations about things you know nothing about. See what those other people are doing on campus. You're walking past them every day, you might as well know what they're doing. If you're not involved in a project, go to the presentations that are most closely interest you. Talk to those students about their experiences. Get to know what they've gone through. Maybe their faculty mentor will be there and you can meet them and start talking that way. But check out the symposium. It's an incredibly exciting day. It's frankly the highlight of my year, just watching all of the people that I've seen in this room saying, yeah, research sounds cool, to I'm a researcher, look what I did. So check out the symposium, it's awesome. Just a couple of quick notes. UCI website, or UROP website, urop.uci.edu. We are going way too long, so I'm not going to show you much about it, but things to note. Under About UROP, there is a, come on cursor, there is a Contact Us page, which talks about, oddly enough, all the ways you can contact us, including ways to schedule appointments. Also under About, you can see all of the smiling people that work at UROP. Professional staff, peer advisors, ambassadors. You can learn a little bit more about all of us that way. So if you do want to make an appointment, you can actually know who we are a little bit more. All of the programs we offer are on the opportunities page. You can explore those at your leisure. But the important thing about our website is there's a lot of information there. And again, if you're going to make an appointment to talk to us, we want you to have explored everything we've already posted, so we don't spend a half-hour appointment saying, it's right there. It's there. We want to answer questions that we haven't answered anywhere else. That's of greater benefit both to us and to you as well. But that's kind of what we do. There's our URL one more time. A research roadmap. I'm not going to spend much time on this because it's a whole lot of steps. But as you look at it, you will note there's a lot that can be involved in a research project. You are now at number 1. We have 17 steps here. Starting a research journey is one of those roads you step on that can take you through your entire scholastic career, grad school, a career, your life. It's one of those starting points that you can look back on in 20 years and say, wow, look how far I've come. Final thoughts.
If I could leave you with anything, it's follow your passion. You're going to find something that sparks your interest in one of your classes, in the lectures, on your professor's websites. There's something there. Follow that, because the passion and curiosity is going to carry you through everything else in the research process. So allow yourself to be creative, curious, and passionate.
And then just a couple of things to think about. We have some more presentations coming up. You can see them on the calendar page of our website. We also have some deadlines coming up. As you get involved in research, you can look into these programs a little bit more deeply. We have a link tree that has all sorts of information about all sorts of stuff that we offer. The QR on the right We do a lot of presentations like this, and our job is to hope that you get as much out of it as you come expecting. And the only way we know if that's working is if you tell us. So the QR code on the right of the screen, and you will also get this in a follow-up email from us if you miss it now, is a link to a short survey. I invite you to fill that out. If this was the most amazing presentation you've ever been to in your lives, probably not, but if it is, tell us. It's the sort of thing I love showing my boss, and so does Brittany. If there are things you wish we'd covered or covered in more depth, tell us. We can look at that next time. But we really appreciate your feedback. And with that, I want to thank you all for coming. As I said, Brittany and I will stick around as long as there are questions afterwards. But at this point, before people start filing out, any questions? Yes?
For follow-up emails, if we're running out of topics to talk about, what exactly do we do?
If you are sending a follow-up email and you don't know what to say because you think you've covered everything, basically just limit it to what I just said. How many of you have ever gone into your email inbox and discovered something that's been sitting there 3 weeks that you never noticed before? Anybody not have that happen? Yeah, professors too. So just saying, I sent you an email, I just want to remind you I'm really interested, and just want to make sure you're thinking about me. So even something like that is a perfectly viable follow-up email. You don't need to say, here's another reason that I forgot to put in my other emails. And, oh, have you thought about this? You don't need to pad them each time you send them. Just, I sent you emails, I'm interested. Did you see those? Again, don't write it that way, but that's basically all you need to do. Other questions? All right. Then again, thank you for coming. Have a great afternoon and good luck with your research.